The alarm bells screamed across the massive space station that served as the center of the Galactic Council. Ambassador Zexhai rushed through the metal corridors, his forearms moving quickly as he tried to keep up with the emergency messages flooding his communication device. The news was bad. Very bad. In the main council chamber, representatives from 47 different alien species gathered around a huge holographic display. The image showed a star map of the galaxy, but something was wrong with it. Large sections that had once glowed with the light of living worlds now showed nothing but darkness. Empty space where entire solar systems used to exist. The Void Hunters have awakened, announced Prime Council leader Ithara, her voice echoing through the chamber. Her species, the Alterans, had ruled the council for over 200 years. They were known for their calm leadership, but today her normally steady voice shook with fear. The hologram zoomed in on one of the dark areas. Where the planet Kelsor Prime once stood, there was nothing, not even debris. The entire world had simply vanished, along with its 3 billion inhabitants. The star that had warmed that world for millions of years now burned cold and empty, its light somehow drained away. "How many worlds have we lost?" asked General Thexan of the Krogan Empire. His people were warriors, bred for battle and trained from birth to fight. Even he looked worried. 17 systems in the past 6 months, replied Ithara. But it's getting faster. They took 4 systems in the last week alone. The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew about the Void Hunters from ancient records, but most had thought they were just stories. Legends told of a race that appeared every 1,000 years, consuming everything in their path. They didn't just destroy planets or kill people. They drained the very life force from entire star systems, leaving behind empty shells of dead space. "The pattern is clear," continued Ithara, pointing to the display. "They're moving toward the core worlds. If we don't stop them, they'll reach the heart of galactic civilization within 2 years. Dr. Selenius of the Selenian Republic raised one of his many tentacles. His species were known as the greatest military strategists in the galaxy. We've tried everything. Our best battle fleets can't even touch their ships. Energy weapons pass right through them. Physical projectiles simply disappear. It's like they exist in a different dimension." "What about the cybernetic armies?" asked someone from the back of the chamber. "The Nexus Collective sent 3 full battle groups," replied another representative. "The Void Hunters somehow turned their own technology against them. We lost contact with all 3 fleets." Commander Zara of the Human Federation sat quietly in her designated seat. Humans were new to the galactic community, having only made contact 15 years ago. Most species still saw them as a young, unimportant race with little to offer the greater galaxy. Earth was far from the core worlds and a quiet arm of the galaxy that most considered uninteresting. The debate continued for hours. Every major military power had tried to fight the Void Hunters and failed. The Krogan had sent their fiercest warriors. The Selenians had deployed their most brilliant tactical minds. The energy-based Lumina had attempted to match the Void Hunters' strange powers. Nothing worked. "We need to send out a general call," Ithara finally announced. "To every world, every species, every government. We need warriors. Anyone who can fight. Anyone who understands battle. Anyone with military experience. This threat is beyond any single species now." The emergency broadcast went out across the galaxy within the hour. The message was simple but desperate. To all sentient species, the galaxy faces its greatest threat in recorded history. The Void Hunters have returned and are consuming entire star systems. We call upon every world that has warriors, soldiers, or military forces. We need fighters, strategists, and anyone with knowledge of warfare. The survival of all galactic civilization depends on our combined strength. Respond immediately if you can help. The responses came quickly. The Draconian Imperium promised to send their elite shock troops. The Crystalline Collective offered their energy manipulation specialists. The bioengineered hegemony prepared their living weapons. Even smaller species contributed what they could. Pirates, mercenaries, and independent military contractors all answered the call. But then came a response that puzzled everyone. The transmission came from Earth. From the Human Federation's military headquarters. The message was brief and strangely casual. Galactic Council emergency broadcast received. "We understand the situation with the Void Hunters. We've reviewed your data and the failed attempts by other species. We're not sending warriors. We're sending something different. 3 ships will arrive at your coordinates in 48 hours. Human Federation out." The council chamber erupted in confused conversations. What did the humans mean by something different? Their military technology was basic compared to most galactic species. Their population was small. They had no special powers or advanced abilities. What could they possibly offer that the mighty Krogan warriors or brilliant Selenian strategists could not? Maybe they misunderstood the message, suggested one. Representative. Or perhaps they're sending engineers or scientists instead of soldiers, offered another ambassador. HFY pulled up Earth's file on his display. The humans were indeed a young species. They had only recently developed faster-than-light travel. Their weapons technology was primitive by galactic standards. They had no psychic abilities, no energy manipulation powers, no cybernetic enhancements. They were just ordinary. What kind of help could they provide? He wondered aloud. General Thexan snorted with dismissal. Probably some kind of support role. Maybe they'll cook food for the real warriors or help with supply lines. But Commander Zara had been quiet throughout the entire discussion. She had studied human history more than most. Unlike other species that had evolved beyond their violent pasts, humans still remembered war. They had a saying, "Know your enemy." But more importantly, they had another saying that few other species understood. There are no rules in war, only victory and defeat. As the council session ended and representatives returned to their ships to prepare for the coming battle, Zara made a mental note to watch the human ships carefully when they arrived. She had a feeling that the galaxy was about to learn something new about Earth's youngest species. 2 days later, long-range sensors detected 3 ships approaching the council station. They were small by galactic standards, painted in flat black that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. No bright colors, no intimidating designs, no displays of power. They looked almost unremarkable. The ships requested docking permission and landed quietly in the station's lower bays. No fanfare, no ceremony, no grand announcements. Just 3 dark ships settling into their berths like shadows. The galaxy had asked for warriors to fight the Void Hunters. Every species had sent their best fighters, their greatest military minds, their most advanced technology. Fleets of warships filled the space around the council station, preparing for the greatest battle in galactic history. But the humans had sent something else entirely. Something that made no grand speeches, carried no shining weapons, and wore no medals of honor. Whatever they had sent preferred to work in darkness and silence. The war against the Void Hunters was about to begin, but it would not be the kind of war that anyone expected. The docking bay was crowded with representatives from dozens of species, all waiting to see what the humans had brought. Massive Krogan soldiers stood next to sleek Selenian tactical officers. Crystalline beings hummed with energy, while cybernetic nexus units processed data streams. Everyone wanted to see Earth's contribution to the war effort. The airlock on the first human ship opened with a soft hiss. What emerged was not what anyone expected. The first human was a woman of average height with short brown hair. She wore a simple black uniform with no decorations, no rank insignia, no medals. Her equipment was minimal. A small communication device and what looked like a basic data tablet. She walked with quiet confidence, her eyes constantly moving, observing everything around her. Behind her came 11 more humans, all dressed similarly. They ranged in age from young adults to middle-aged. Some were men, some were women. None of them looked particularly impressive. No enhanced muscles like Krogan warriors, no cybernetic implants like Nexus soldiers, no glowing energy fields like Lumina fighters. They looked completely ordinary. The woman approached the waiting reception committee. "I'm Director Sarah Chen," she said simply. "We're here about your Void Hunter problem." Ambassador HFY stepped forward, trying to hide his confusion. "Director Chen, welcome to the council station. We were expecting, well, military personnel, warriors, soldiers." Chen's expression didn't change. "You misunderstood our message. We didn't send warriors because warriors fight battles. Warriors seek glory, honor, and victory. They follow rules of engagement and codes of conduct." She paused, her dark eyes scanning the assembled representatives. "We sent executioners." The word hung in the air like a physical thing. Several aliens stepped back instinctively. The Krogan general laughed, but it sounded forced. "Executioners?" General Thexan repeated. "You mean assassins?" "No," Chen replied calmly. "Assassins kill specific targets for specific reasons. Executioners solve problems permanently. The Void Hunters are a problem. We're here to make them stop being a problem. Dr. Selenius of the Selenian Republic waved several tentacles in agitation. But how? Our greatest military minds have tried everything. Advanced weapons, tactical formations, strategic retreats. Nothing works against them. That's because you've been thinking like warriors, Chen said. Warriors fight until the enemy surrenders or retreats. They want to win battles and prove their superiority. Executioners don't care about winning. They care about ending threats permanently. Commander Zara pushed forward through the crowd. What exactly are you proposing? Chen turned to face her. You've been trying to fight the Void Hunters on their terms. Space battles, direct confrontation, military engagement. You're playing their game. She pulled out her data tablet and showed them a holographic display. We've reviewed all your combat data. Every failed strategy, every lost fleet, every destroyed world. The pattern is clear. The display showed a map of Void Hunter movements over the past 6 months. Red dots marked their attacks while blue lines showed the galactic military response. You react to their moves, Chen continued. They attack, you defend. They advance, you retreat. They choose the battlefield, you fight on it. This isn't working because you're fighting a war. We don't fight wars. We solve problems. What's the difference? Asked one of the crystalline representatives. Wars have rules, Chen answered. Problems don't. Wars have honor. Problems don't. Wars can be won or lost. Problems can only be solved or left unsolved. She closed the tablet. The Void Hunters are a threat to all galactic life. Therefore, they need to stop existing. The assembly fell silent. The casual way she said, stop existing, sent chills through representatives of species that had evolved beyond such direct solutions to conflict. General Thexan found his voice first. You're talking about genocide. I'm talking about extermination, Chen corrected. Genocide implies they're people. The Void Hunters are a disease that consumes entire star systems. You don't negotiate with cancer. You don't honor the rights of parasites. You eliminate them. But how? Dr. Selenius insisted. They're immune to our weapons. Their technology is beyond our understanding. They seem to exist partially outside normal spacetime. Chen smiled for the first time since arriving. It was not a pleasant expression. That's where you've been making your mistake. You've been trying to understand them as an enemy to fight. We've been studying them as a problem to solve. She gestured to her team. Each of the 12 humans looked completely unremarkable, but there was something about the way they stood, the way they watched everything, that made the aliens uncomfortable. Dr. Martinez here is a xenobiologist who specializes in parasitic life forms. She's been analyzing the biological samples you recovered from affected worlds. Ms. Nakamura is a systems analyst who's been mapping their communication patterns. Mr. Johnson studies infrastructure, dependencies in complex organisms. Chen pointed to each team member in turn. They're not soldiers. They're specialists. Each one is an expert in finding and exploiting weaknesses in complex systems. You're talking about biological warfare, accused one of the council representatives. We're talking about targeted elimination, Chen replied. The Void Hunters have weaknesses. Every living system does. They communicate somehow. They reproduce somehow. They have infrastructure, supply lines, command structures. Find the critical points and apply pressure. She activated her tablet again. This time the display showed a complex web of interconnected nodes. This is our preliminary analysis of Void Hunter organization based on your data. They're not as invulnerable as you think. They're just vulnerable in ways you haven't been looking for. Commander Zara studied the display. You want to attack their infrastructure instead of their fleets. We want to attack everything, Chen said simply. Their infrastructure, their biology, their communication systems, their resource chains, their command hierarchy. Everything that keeps them functioning as a species. And then what? Asked Ambassador HFY. Then they stop functioning as a species, Chen answered. Problem solved. The assembled representatives exchanged worried glances. This was not the kind of military assistance they had expected. Most galactic species had evolved beyond such direct permanent solutions to conflict. They preferred containment, negotiation, or military defeat that allowed for eventual recovery. How long will this take? Dr. Selenius asked. Unknown, Chen replied. Could be weeks, could be months. Depends on how quickly we can identify and exploit their critical vulnerabilities. She looked around at the assembled aliens. You asked for help stopping the Void Hunters. We're here to stop them, permanently. General Thexon stepped forward, his massive frame towering over the small human woman. And what if we decide we don't want your kind of help? Chen looked up at him without flinching. Then you'll continue losing star systems until the Void Hunters consume everything you care about. We're offering you a permanent solution to an existential threat. You can accept it or not, but if you want them gone forever, we're your only option. She turned to address the entire assembly. We'll need access to all your data on the Void Hunters. Battle reports, sensor readings, biological samples, communication intercepts, everything. We'll also need fast ships and minimal oversight. We don't work well with committees watching over our shoulders. Where will you be operating? Asked Commander Zara. Wherever the problem is, Chen answered. We'll be in Void Hunter territory, finding their weak spots and exploiting them. You won't see us much. We prefer to work in the dark. As the humans prepared to leave the docking bay, Chen turned back one more time. The galaxy asked for warriors to fight the Void Hunters, she said. Fighting implies they might win. We don't fight things we intend to eliminate. We study them, understand them, and then make them stop existing. There's a difference. The 12 humans walked back to their ships, leaving behind a crowd of aliens who suddenly weren't sure if they should feel relieved or terrified. 3 weeks passed after the humans departed from the council station. During that time, the war against the Void Hunters continued exactly as it had before, badly. The combined galactic fleet engaged the enemy in 17 different battles across 4 sectors. They lost 16 of those battles. General Thexon stood in the command center of his flagship, the Bloodfang, staring at the tactical display with growing frustration. Red markers showed the positions of Void Hunter fleets advancing steadily toward the core worlds. Blue markers showed the defensive positions of the Galactic Alliance, which seemed to shrink every day. Another retreat, he growled, watching as Admiral Corex's fleet pulled back from the Helios system. The Void Hunters took 3 more worlds this week. Where are these human executioners everyone was so worried about? Commander Zara stood beside him, reviewing the latest intelligence reports. As the Council's military liaison, she had access to communications from all Allied forces. No contact from the human team since they left. Their ships disappeared into Void Hunter territory and we haven't heard anything. Probably dead, Thexon said dismissively. Small ships, minimal weapons, no backup. The Void Hunters likely consumed them before they could do whatever they were planning. Dr. Selenius approached from his workstation, several tentacles holding different data pads. That's what concerns me. We've had no communication from Director Chen's teams, but we also have no debris signatures or distress signals. Their ships simply vanished. Ships vanish around Void Hunters all the time, Thexon pointed out. That's what they do. They consume everything. But Commander Zara was reading something on her display that made her frown. Actually, there's something odd in these reports. Look at this pattern. She transferred her data to the main screen. The display showed Void Hunter movements over the past 3 weeks. While most of their fleets continued advancing toward galactic civilization, several smaller groups had begun moving in unexpected directions. Instead of following their usual pattern of consuming everything in their path, some Void Hunter forces were doubling back, retreating to previously secured areas. They're going back to places they already conquered, Dr. Selenius observed. That doesn't match their behavior from any historical records. Maybe they're regrouping, suggested Thexon. Or maybe something is happening in those areas that requires their attention, Zara said quietly. Over the next few days, more strange reports began filtering in from long-range scouts and automated sensor stations. A Void Hunter command ship was found drifting empty in the ruins of the Centauri system. Sensor sweeps detected massive power fluctuations in previously consumed star systems. Most puzzling of all, several worlds that had been completely drained by the Void Hunters were now showing signs of technological activity again. The breakthrough came when a Selenian reconnaissance probe managed to get close enough to one of the affected systems to record detailed sensor data. What it found defied explanation. The probe detected 3 Void Hunter hive ships in the Arcturus system, Dr. Selenius reported to the assembled command staff. But they weren't moving. They were just floating dead in space. The main display showed the probe's recordings. The massive Void Hunter vessels, each the size of a small moon, hung motionless among the asteroids. Their organic surfaces, which normally pulsed with dark energy, were gray and lifeless. Weapons damage? Asked Thexon. None detected. No blast marks, no hull breaches, no signs of external attack. They just stopped functioning. Commander Zara studied the images carefully. Any idea what killed them? That's the strange part, Dr. Selenius continued. According to the probe's bioscanners, they're not dead. They're sick. The biological components are showing signs of some kind of systemic failure, like a disease. Disease? Thexon laughed harshly. Void hunters don't get sick. They're the sickness. They consume the life force of entire worlds. But Zara was thinking about something Director Chen had said. You don't negotiate with cancer. You eliminate it. She activated her communication console and sent a priority message to all scout ships. All reconnaissance units, begin systematic surveys of previously attacked systems. Look for signs of void hunter ships that aren't functioning normally. Report anything unusual immediately. The responses came back over the next week, and they painted a picture that no one had expected. Throughout void hunter territory, their forces were experiencing systematic failures. Ships found floating dead, outposts that had stopped transmitting, supply routes that had been active for months suddenly going silent. The pattern was subtle but unmistakable. The void hunters weren't being defeated in battle. They were simply ceasing to function, like a machine slowly breaking down or an organism dying from within. It's like they're being poisoned, observed Dr. Selenius during one of the daily briefings. But by what? The answer came from an unexpected source. A communication signal, weak and encrypted, reached the council station from deep within void hunter territory. The encryption was human. This is Operative Johnson, the voice said over the static-filled transmission, reporting completion of Phase 1 operations. Infrastructure disruption achieved. Beginning Phase 2 biological protocols. General Thexon grabbed the communication console. Johnson! Where are you? What's your status? There was a long pause before the reply came back. Unable to disclose location for operational security. All human teams operating normally. Void hunter response patterns are within expected parameters. What response patterns? Zara demanded. What are you doing out there? Another pause. We're solving the problem, Commander. Just like Director Chen said we would. But how? Dr. Selenius interjected. What kind of weapons are you using? The answer when it came sent chills through everyone in the command center. We're not using weapons, Doctor. Weapons are for fighting. We're using solutions. Targeted biological agents, infrastructure sabotage, communication disruption, supply chain elimination, and systematic removal of critical personnel. The transmission crackled with static, but Johnson's voice came through clearly. The void hunters have weaknesses. They depend on specific biological processes. They require certain resources. They rely on communication networks. They have command structures. Remove any of these elements and their system begins to fail. You're talking about biochemical warfare, Thexon said accusingly. We're talking about pest control, Johnson replied calmly. Director Chen's orders were clear. Make the void hunters stop being a problem. We're making them stop being anything. The communication ended, leaving the command center in shocked silence. Outside the windows, the stars twinkled peacefully, giving no sign of the quiet war being waged in the darkness between them. Over the following days, the reports continued to come in. More void hunter ships found drifting lifeless, more outposts going silent, more supply lines collapsing. The great advancing fleets that had threatened galactic civilization were slowly grinding to a halt. Not from military defeat, but from systematic internal collapse. The void hunters, for the first time in recorded history, were dying. Not from battle wounds or energy weapons or cybernetic viruses. They were dying from something far more subtle and far more permanent. They were dying from solutions that attacked everything they needed to exist as a species. And somewhere in the darkness between the stars, 12 humans continued their quiet work, methodically eliminating an entire race that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia. The war was being won, but it wasn't the kind of war anyone had expected to fight. The Council's emergency session was called after intercepted void hunter communications revealed something that shook even the most experienced military leaders. For the first time in galactic history, the void hunters were afraid. Dr. Selenius played the translated transmission for the assembled representatives. The voice was unlike anything they had heard before, a deep resonating sound that seemed to vibrate through their bones. The silent death spreads through our fleets, the void hunter commander reported. Ships die without battle. World, stop feeding us without conquest. The shadow killers move unseen through our domain. Ambassador HFY leaned forward in his chair. Shadow killers? They're talking about the humans? Listen to the rest, Dr. Selenius said grimly. The transmission continued. They are not like the warrior slaves who attack our ships. These new enemies do not seek battle. They do not want glory. They bring ending without fighting. Our spawn mothers die from invisible sickness. Our communication networks fail for unknown reasons. Our supply worlds grow barren though no weapon touched them. Commander Zara felt a cold understanding creeping through her mind. They're not fighting the Void Hunters at all. They're systematically destroying everything the Void Hunters need to survive. General Thexan slammed his massive fist on the table. This is not warfare. This is extermination. Yes, came a voice from the chamber's entrance. Director Chen walked in quietly, as if she had been there all along. She wore the same simple black uniform, but now it seemed somehow more ominous. It is extermination. That's what we promised to deliver. The assembled representatives turned to stare at her. She looked exactly the same as when she had left 3 weeks ago, but there was something different in her eyes. A calm certainty that made several aliens uncomfortable. How did you get aboard this station? Demanded Thexan. Security should have detected your ship. Security detected what we wanted them to detect, Chen replied simply. We've been monitoring your communications and thought it was time for an update. She walked to the center of the chamber and activated a portable holographic projector. The display showed a detailed map of Void Hunter territory, but it looked very different from the last intelligence reports. Current status of Void Hunter forces, Chen announced. Operational capacity reduced by 67%. Active fleet strength down 82%. Communication network degradation at 74% and climbing. The map showed vast areas of space that had been Void Hunter strongholds just weeks ago. Now they were marked in gray, dead zones where nothing functioned. How? Dr. Selenius asked, his tentacles writhing with agitation. How are you doing this? Chen touched the projector's controls, and the display zoomed in on one of the gray areas. Target identification and systematic elimination. The Void Hunters aren't mysterious or invulnerable. They're just a complex biological system. All complex systems have critical failure points. The display showed a series of images. Massive organic structures floating in space. Their surfaces covered with intricate biological networks. These are their spawning complexes, Chen explained. They reproduce using specialized organisms that require very specific environmental conditions. Dr. Martinez identified the exact biological requirements and developed targeted contaminants. The images changed to show the same structures, but now they were withered and gray, their surfaces covered with what looked like infection. The contaminants don't kill them immediately. They disrupt their reproductive cycle. No new Void Hunters can be created, and existing ones begin to deteriorate without the constant biological support they require. That's biological warfare, protested one of the council representatives. That's pest control, Chen corrected. We're eliminating a species that consumes all other life. They're not people, they're a cosmic infestation. She changed the display again. This time it showed complex energy, patterns flowing between Void Hunter ships. They communicate, using a form of quantum entanglement that allows instant communication across vast distances. Ms. Nakamura mapped their network and found the primary nodes. The display highlighted several points where the energy patterns converged. Eliminate the nodes and they lose coordination. Without coordination, they can't operate as a unified force. General Thexan studied the images with growing unease. How did you eliminate quantum communication nodes? Targeted assassination, Chen said matter-of-factly. The nodes aren't technological. They're living creatures with specialized brain structures. Find the creatures, kill them quietly, and entire fleets lose contact with their command structure. You're talking about murder, Thexan accused. I'm talking about extermination of a threat to all galactic life, Chen replied calmly. Would you prefer we negotiate with them? Ask them politely to stop consuming entire star systems? She activated another sequence of images. These showed massive organic structures that looked like twisted cities floating in the vacuum of space. Resource processing centers, she explained. They convert consumed matter into the specialized nutrients Void Hunters require. Mr. Johnson identified the critical enzymes in their digestive processes. Introduce the right inhibitors and they can't process food anymore. The images showed the same structures slowly dissolving, their organic components breaking down at the molecular level. Without food processing, they starve. It takes time, but it's permanent. Entire fleets just stop functioning. Commander Zara realized what she was seeing. You're not fighting a war. You're conducting a systematic genocide. We're solving a problem, Chen corrected. The Void Hunters are a threat to all life in the galaxy. They cannot be reasoned with, contained, or defeated through conventional warfare. The only permanent solution is elimination. But they're a sentient species, protested Dr. Selenius. So are the billions of beings they've consumed, Chen replied. The Void Hunters made their choice when they decided to prey on all other life. We are simply implementing the logical consequence of that choice. She shut off the holographic display and faced the assembled representatives directly. You called for help against an existential threat. We provided it. The Void Hunters will be extinct within 6 months. The threat to galactic civilization will be permanently eliminated. Problem solved. The chamber fell silent. Every representative was thinking the same thing. If humans could do this to the Void Hunters, what could they do to anyone else they considered a problem? General Thexon voiced what everyone was thinking. And what happens after the Void Hunters are gone? What happens if some other species becomes a problem in your eyes? Chen's expression didn't change. Other species don't threaten the existence of all galactic life. The Void Hunters do. That's what makes them a problem requiring permanent solution. But how do we know you'll stop there? Ambassador Zexai asked. Because you're not trying to consume every other species in the galaxy, Chen answered. You coexist with other life forms. You build instead of just consuming. You can be reasoned with, she paused. The Void Hunters cannot. That's why they needed to be eliminated rather than defeated. She turned to leave, then stopped at the chamber entrance. The operation will be complete within 6 months, she said. After that, you'll never have to worry about the Void Hunters again. They will simply no longer exist as a species. As Director Chen disappeared back into the corridors of the station, the council representatives sat in stunned silence. They had asked for warriors to fight their enemy. Instead, they had received something far more effective and infinitely more frightening. The humans hadn't come to fight the Void Hunters. They had come to erase them from existence entirely, and they were very, very good at their job. The end came on a Tuesday morning, Galactic Standard Time. Commander Zara was reviewing routine patrol reports when her communication console began flashing with priority alerts. Signal after signal poured in from monitoring stations throughout the galaxy. Every sensor array, every deep space probe, every listening post was reporting the same impossible thing. The Void Hunters had gone silent, not defeated in battle, not retreating to lick their wounds, not regrouping for another attack. Silent, as in no longer transmitting, no longer moving, no longer existing as a functioning civilization. Get me a connection to the Arcturus monitoring station, Zara ordered her communications officer. The response came back within minutes. Commander, this is Station Arcturus. We're showing complete cessation of all Void Hunter activity in sectors 7 through 12. No movement, no communications, no energy signatures. It's like they just stopped. Similar reports flooded in from across the galaxy. The massive fleets that had terrorized star systems for months were found drifting dead in space. The organic command structures that had coordinated their attacks had simply shut down. The spawning worlds that had produced new generations of Void Hunters were barren and lifeless. General Thexon stood in the Council's main command center, staring at a galaxy-wide tactical display that showed something unprecedented in recorded history. The red markers that had represented Void Hunter forces were gone. All of them, replaced by gray dots indicating dead or inactive contacts. Status report from all sectors, he demanded. The responses came in one by one. Krogan battle groups reported finding Void Hunter fleets floating motionless in space. Selenian reconnaissance ships discovered empty hive worlds where massive populations had simply ceased to exist. Crystalline scouts transmitted images of organic space stations that had withered away like dying plants. It's not possible, Dr. Selenius muttered, his tentacles working frantically over multiple data screens. An entire species can't just disappear overnight, but they had. In the span of less than 72 hours, the Void Hunters had gone from a galactic threat to an extinct species. No final battle, no desperate last stand, no dramatic conclusion. They had simply stopped existing. The explanation came in a final transmission from Director Chen. Council Station. This is Director Chen. Mission complete. Void Hunter threat has been permanently eliminated. Total population reduction 100%. Probability of species recovery 0.003%. Containment protocols for any surviving specimens have been implemented. Her voice was as calm and professional as it had been during their first meeting. She could have been reporting the completion of a routine maintenance task. Final operational summary. We identified 17 critical biological dependencies, 43 essential communication nodes, and 68 primary resource processing centers. All targets were eliminated using targeted biological agents, infrastructure sabotage, and systematic removal of irreplaceable personnel. Commander Zara activated her microphone. Director Chen, are you saying the entire species is extinct? Confirmed, Commander. The Void Hunters are no longer a viable species. Their reproductive capacity has been eliminated. Their communication networks have been destroyed. Their resource base has been eliminated, and their command structure has been terminated. But how is that possible? There were millions of them spread across hundreds of star systems. Complex biological systems are more fragile than they appear, Chen replied. Remove the right components and the entire system collapses. We identified what they needed to survive as a species and eliminated those elements. The transmission continued with clinical precision. Their reproductive cycle required specific environmental conditions that we contaminated. Their communication network depended on specialized organisms that we eliminated. Their resource processing relied on particular enzymes that we neutralized. Their command structure centered on irreplaceable individuals that we removed. General Thexon found his voice. You're talking about systematic extermination of an entire intelligent species. We're talking about the permanent solution to an existential threat, Chen corrected. The Void Hunters consumed entire star systems. They represented a threat to all other life in the galaxy. Standard military engagement was ineffective. Elimination was the only viable option. Dr. Selenius looked up from his data screens, but surely some survived. In remote areas or isolated groups or... Negative, Chen interrupted. We implemented galaxy-wide containment protocols. Any surviving specimens will be located and eliminated within the next 60 days. The species will be completely extinct. The cold certainty in her voice sent chills through everyone in the command center. This wasn't boasting or threats. It was a simple statement of fact delivered by someone who had just erased an entire civilization from existence. How do we verify this? Asked Ambassador HFY. You don't need to verify it, Chen replied. You'll simply notice that the Void Hunters never attack anyone ever again. Problem solved. Over the following weeks, confirmation came from across the galaxy. Every Void Hunter ship, station, and settlement that was investigated was found to be completely lifeless. Not damaged, not abandoned, lifeless. As if an entire species had simply decided to stop existing all at once. The war that had threatened to consume galactic civilization was over. Not through military victory or negotiated peace, but through the complete elimination of one side. The Void Hunters were gone as thoroughly as if they had never existed. When the human ships prepared to depart from Council Station, representatives from dozens of species gathered to see them off. But the mood was very different from their arrival. The aliens watched the 12 humans with a mixture of gratitude and fear. Director Chen made one final statement before boarding her ship. The Void Hunter threat has been permanently eliminated. You will never need to worry about them again. They cannot return, cannot recover, and cannot threaten galactic civilization. She paused, her dark eyes scanning the assembled representatives. We hope this will not be necessary again. Ambassador HFY stepped forward. Director Chen, we're grateful for what you've done. But we have to ask, how do we know you won't consider other species a threat someday? Chen's answer was simple and terrifying. Other species don't try to consume all life in the galaxy. Remain that way. As the human ships disappeared into the darkness of space, the galaxy was left to contemplate what had just happened. The greatest threat in recorded history had been eliminated, not through heroic battles or brilliant strategies, but through systematic, methodical extermination. Months later, when new species applied to join the Galactic Council, they were given a standard briefing about humanity. The message was clear and consistent. Humans are our allies. They are reasonable, peaceful, and prefer negotiation to conflict. They have never threatened any member species of the Council. They also consider extinction a perfectly acceptable solution to existential threats. Do not become an existential threat. And across the galaxy, peace reigned, not because everyone loved each other, but because everyone understood that somewhere out there, 12 humans in black ships were ready to solve problems permanently if necessary. The galaxy had asked for warriors to fight the Void Hunters. Instead, they had received something far more effective. Executioners who worked in silence, thought in absolutes, and considered extinction just another tool for solving problems. The Void Hunters were gone forever, and everyone knew that if any other species ever threatened galactic civilization the way the Void Hunters had, humanity would not hesitate to become executioners once again. The threat was ended, the problem was solved, and the universe continued turning, a little safer and a lot more careful about what kinds of problems it allowed to exist.